everybody. My name is Eric McLeod.
And I'm Chris Holden.
And you are listening to and watching LowBlowRadio podcast. We just watched AEW Dynamite. It was their anniversary edition. It's Wednesday, October 14th. And we're going to give you our blow-by-blow as we do here on the LowBlowRadio podcast.
Yes.
Chris, what do we kick off with tonight?
First match, the World Tag Team title match. We had the pleasure of seeing all the titles defended this evening on the anniversary. The FTR tonight, the first opener, taking on the Best Friends in what I thought was a really good match.
Yeah. No, I think a real solid, match, both from Best Friends as well as FTR here. Slowly showing how much they're working with these other teams to kind of get them over. In a sense, like in the broader picture, like outside of the stories and that kind of stuff, you can definitely tell they're wanting to work with more of these tag teams to just deliver better tag team matchups that tell more stories and those kind of things. And that's again what they delivered here. And a lot of the stuff made good sense. They had met before in the Gauntlet, so this was obviously more of a proper rematch. Where both teams a little bit more fresh coming into things here. And FTR making a good job cutting off the ring as they've been shown to do lately in a lot of their matches, and did a good job cutting Trent off for a majority of this match. But Best Friends really getting in a lot of really strong offense as well, and some close calls as well.
Yeah, I obviously by the end of it, I'm starting to see this a lot the way you were pitching it last week. That FTR just don't win without the weasel, without being weasels.
Yeah.
So they put on a good match, but no better than any of the teams they're up against. They're all equal and up to the task of wrestling FTR. Mm. They just don't get the win because they don't revert to the tactic that FTR tend to revert to. Tully, once again, with the trip tonight, came close. He got his comeuppance this evening. But the finish, I liked it. Great match, right? But I thought by the end, I'm like, I think Eric's right. They only win with the heel stuff. Like, that's the thing.
And in this one, it was a little too obvious too. Like I don't know if that a lot was more on the ref than the guy. Like the guys just kind of did their spot, but the ref was positioned really poorly there at the end to not really see the very telegraphed use of the title belt and those kind of things. So yeah, that seemed a little unfortunate and stuff. But
little weird.
Yeah. Especially on such a good match, it's unfortunate when you have something a little dampening there that can kind of contrast things a little bit. But pretty solid back and forth here from these two. But yeah, as we said, there was sort of once again the heel tactics of FTR using the title shot to take out Trent for a pinfall victory again for the FTR to keep their titles. We also had a spot where they ended up on the outside. I think it was Cash, and Trent went after him, ended up diving into poor Kip Sabian's arcade machine. That looked like quite the spot.
Yeah. I thought it was, I mean, funny bit, decent in a solid match. Like it was, don't think it took anything away from the bout to play outside of it like that. So, nope. I really liked it. I thought it was a great opener.
Yeah, I think other than that, like certainly setting up and like not telegraphing too much, but you knew that like obviously like with Penelope running off, like Miro was certainly not far behind, and that's what we got here. But it wasn't like it took away from the match at all with having that little bit of distraction. Good solid end there for the Best Friends. But then as we sort of said, this sort of Penelope had run off into the back. You assumed to sort of tell Miro about the accident with the arcade machine, and this brought Miro out to attack the Best Friends after their real tough match they had with FTR here, and really not making Miro look too face-like, but pretty upset, I guess, about the arcade machine, I guess.
He wasn't happy. I mean, I think a lot of the Miro, I don't think they want him to be a babyface. I think they wanted to be a big savage heel. You're stuck with the reaction and the reception he was going to get when he debuted. He's going to get the big raucous, right?
Yeah.
Thing. So they got to start swinging him. If they do want him to be a bad guy, they got to paint him in that picture. And this goes a long way to doing that. And then the squash match that followed, I didn't catch the name of the two jabronis that they destroyed there, but or that Miro destroyed. It was really just a one-man tag team match, right?
Yes, yeah, this was the next match we got to. Miro with Kip Sabian. The announcers were sort of alluding to that their match was going to be coming up next as everyone was sort of coming out to the ring. We came back from the break, and it was Miro and Kip Sabian taking on Sean Maludo and Lee Johnson here. And yeah, like a solid 2-minute squash match, mostly just Miro. I think Kip got in and got a big splash. I'm not sure if he hit any other offense early on, but
He
a
didn't need to.
majority of this was just Miro. Yeah, sometimes his intensity leads to a bit of not necessarily botches, but just like slight miss spots and things like that. So I can tell that he's excited to be back in the ring and all those kind of things. But I think a few more matches he'll be able to sort of tone some of that excitement down a little, because I still want to see him excited, but to just keep the control in the ring a little bit more, I'd like to see from Miro.
I think it's what Jim Cornette refers to as the happy feet. The guy is so excited that he can't remember where his feet are going, and they move a little bit too much more than they need to, and it leads to those slight little mishaps, the misstep things that you see.
Yeah.
But not, again, because of the nature of it being a squash match, that stuff's that much more sweep under the ruggable, right? Because
True.
it wasn't there was nothing devastating about anything that was about. It wasn't like the big swole spot later in the night that she muffed, which again is forgivable because it's swole, and I think we've come to expect, and you forgive a little bit more with some of these guys and girls that we've gotten to know a bit better and know that they're green. I'll forgive Luchasaurus the occasional slip, and Wardlaw, those guys, right? So Swole, I think, fits in that category. Miro is, I think he's got more experience than those guys, so he shouldn't make the same kind of mistakes, but can't forgive him a little bit of the excitement, as you say.
For sure. And I mean, a fresh new group of people you never worked with before. Everyone's had slip ups. You look back to like AJ Styles first coming to WWE and knocking Miz's teeth out and stuff like that. Just like, sorry, just not quite used to wrestling here. So again, I think a few adjustments from Miro, but seeing more of him is certainly a good thing. Got some real aggression out of him here in this squash. And yeah, we'll see what's next for him and Kip Sabian, as they were.
And hey, it wasn't Matt Seidel's debut.
Well, very, very true. And it seemed like they were quite upset with the Best Friends after destroying the arcade machine, and maybe that will be the feud going forward for these two and the Best Friends as well. We got a little backstage segment with the announced team just kind of let us know something was happening in the back. It was Lance Archer really laying into Jon Moxley, our world champion here. This was, of course, leading into what's going to be their world title match in the main event. And yeah, nice sort of backstage brawl segment. What did you make of this?
All right, I thought it made Archer look great. Both of the backstage bits did. My only fear at the beginning of this was I worried that was this a way to write the world title match out of the card tonight somehow for some reason.
Right.
So that brief concern of like, oh no, one of them's sick and this is the out, and then you're like, no, just an angle, great.
For sure. Yeah, and in hindsight, when it's like the two segments and all it does is lead to the fact that they make the main event no disqualification. Well, at least you gave it a reason. It's not like when all of a sudden you get Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar that's promoted for God knows how long, and then you get there and it's like, oh, this is no disqualification. You didn't know that? Like,
yeah.
When it feels like you're the one that forgot. Like they at
least gave you, it was all along. Exactly.
Totally. At least wanting to give a reason for that match to be the way it was. So yeah, good solid segment there. We got the commentators letting us know the final participants for the 8-man tournament that's going to be taking place to have our next number one contender will be finalized at Full Gear. Last two participants announced were Pentagon Jr. as well as Joey Janela. The brackets are: A bracket is Penta versus Phoenix, Kenny versus Joey Janela. B bracket, Colt Cabana versus Hangman Page, and Wardlow versus Jungle Boy. So yeah, some decent matchups in the first blocks, I think.
I thought the two takeaways were Penta versus Ray Phoenix in the very first match.
Yeah.
And Kenny Omega and Hangman being on opposite sides of the bracket. Because I think we're, again, led to believe that that's our final when you quickly look at the lineups. It looks at first glance like that's going to be our finals, right? I mean, there's two of these things are not like the others in the tournament.
Absolutely. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. It doesn't seem too telegraphed at all. It just seems like good storytelling. So we'll see how things play out if they end up swerving things and having a reason for that. I'm okay with that too. But no, it certainly seems like the ball is rolling towards that. But I'm excited for all these matchups. I think, yeah, Penta and Phoenix against each other is an interesting matchup. And yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of different things across the board here. So excited to see what takes place there when the first round, I believe, starts next week.
I do love tournaments, and I like the setup and stuff. I like the Penta versus Ray Phoenix match in the first, and I love Kenny versus Hangman on the opposite sides of the bridge.
Right.
My only question on this would be with some of the other participants in it is we're, again, in AEW, wins and losses matter. We're treating it more as a sport kind of. How did they earn? Like, I haven't seen Colt Cabana in a singles match in a while. But when was the last time? I think he's done tag stuff with Dark Order, and they've lost it because of Colt, right?
Right.
Wardlaw.
I mean, I
haven't seen it. I'd rather have seen it.
He's won like 3 times on Dark, but again, that's if you're not watching Dark, you don't know, and they don't say those things. So again, it's on
Wardlaw as well, and Jungle Boy.
Jungle Boy just won on Dark, Wardlow just won on Dark, and Colt just won on Dark. So yeah, it's all about. Okay. I see it in AEW's mind. They're only producing their product, right? If their eyes, they want you watching all their stuff. They don't expect you to be watching other companies and things like that. But also to their detriment, having stuff like that, you end up in situations like this where you don't know that Colt's winning on other shows and doing other things, and it ends up hurting things in a little bit. So
maybe I'll take the thing on that. That's more on me for not knowing that they're winning. I mean, granted, I think they should have probably said on commentary, these guys are on hot streaks on Dark, or have won a few in a row, because that was my only thing. I'd rather, in a number one contender show, I'm wondering why aren't I seeing MJF, who's only had one loss in a year, and why aren't instead of
no, fair enough, and I think that's on them where they
stop the strap. Like, it's a number one contender tournament. Let's have the top contenders all in it. Obviously, though, you do that. Now you got to suffer big wins and big losses. That's different.
No, for sure. I think you open this up to actually have people be able to take losses and wins and those kind of things to make them matter more. And yeah, I think they used the Dark at those very specific times. It was just this week where you got to have Jungle Boy in a big singles match, got a big win. You got to see Wardlow, you got to see Colt, and then they get announced. I mean, they were already announced for this tournament. So again, when they're being utilized again in storylines and stuff like that, they do seem to be then pushed on the other shows. But again, that's mostly comes down to just the 2 hours of Dynamite. There's only so much time and so much talking these guys can do to get everybody over, and there's just a lot of wrestling to pay attention to. So sometimes it can be some things can slip through the cracks here. But moving on to our next segment here, I think about all I have to say about the tournament, other than I'm excited to see that first round. We had the MJF big announcement.
Yeah, fantastic little promo this was, right down to Sammy Guerrero putting on the jacket that's obviously 17 sizes too big for him to make him look like the fool. MJF obviously doesn't like Sammy too much. He's his spot that he thinks he should have in the inner circle.
Yeah.
Gets around to half-assed, half-heartedly suggesting maybe, kind of, sort of, maybe I want to be in the inner circle. I'm asking you kind of now, which I guess is as good as it's going to get. So Jericho says it's not going down like that. Next week, steak dinner, which they sold then in the back and forth promo as if they were having a match next week. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought that was just brilliant promo work. That's how they should do it in like wrestling promo classes. Like, do it as if you're having a match, but you're not. You're going out for dinner.
Well, right? Again, I gotta say, if you're what that reminds me of is the segments on Being the Elite, where they make Eddie Kingston cut a promo on anything. They're like, cut a promo on this cookie, cut a promo on this bag of Sour Patch Kids. Like, anything that's just sort of around you can always just sort of get it over in that sense. So no, I think pretty decent segment here, and I like the little layers of stuff. Obviously, the fact of like Sammy not liking MJF from the get-go and being upset with the jacket, but then Jericho just sort of making him have to do it. The sort of like tension between Pride and Powerful not being very upfront, being like, well, why are we even suggesting the idea that we would accept this guy in our group, like we're a family here, we're good. And then Jericho being like, well, no, I mean, come on, there's maybe something to this. And then the subtlety of the fact that, like, I don't think Wardlow and Hager stopped staring each other down the entire time, and they never even mentioned it. The two of them are just staring daggers into each other off to the side. So I enjoyed the subtleties here, and we'll see how this progresses forward. Obviously, this was sort of what we had predicted a little bit going forward for MJF and Jericho, and I think that makes a lot of sense for both these guys. And if that's going to be the character to move Jericho into like a face character, I can totally see MJF being that heel to really have the fans get behind Jericho instead.
For sure, and I'm starting to feel it won't be so much as I'm taking over the Inner Circle, as this is just kind of the beginning of the end of Inner Circle as we know it. Maybe it reforms in a slightly different way, with Hager somewhat taking the helm. I don't know, or Sammy with a different.
Yeah, I mean it's been a year, and that's sometimes you don't want to take something too far. If all of a sudden Jericho turns and the Inner Circle thing doesn't really work with a face turn for him because they're not ready to turn the whole group, I can totally see that Proud and Powerful could work on their own at this point. They don't need necessarily the elevation of being in the Inner Circle. It's barely mentioned sometimes unless they're out there with Jericho. And they could easily kind of start up their own type of LAX type group if they want to bring in
for sure
Diamante and Ivelisse or something like that to sort of bolster things a little bit. Who knows where they could go. And then, maybe a bit more of a singles push for Hager and Sammy as things move on. But
I don't think you've got an option really of turning the Inner Circle babyface. I mean, not just Proud and Powerful. You could probably do them, but Sammy at this point, especially with where he goes later in the show, and Jake Hager, I mean, he is the big heater, right? So he's hard to get him back to a babyface spot these days. And I don't know if you want to or need to or care to. It's Jericho is your guy just to get him to face the guys like him, the heel sides of the oranges that he's been up against.
I think there's plenty of layers to play with there too, because it's like, do you eventually want to turn Wardlow face during this as well? Do you have him and Hager swap, and then Hager becomes MJF's new heater, and Wardlow is working with Jericho? Who knows what could end up taking place? So we'll have to see how this kind of shakes out when the two of them have their steak dinner next week, which I'm sure will be a fantastic little pre-taped thing. And hey, speaking of pre-tapes, this was definitely my favorite segment of the night. We had Britt Baker having another little hangout with Tony Schiavone.
Are you naked? That was priceless. I wrote down, I honestly didn't know which one of these two promo bits I preferred. They both, by the end of MJF and Jericho, I was clapping. I thought that was just genius ending to it. And this one had me laughing from the get-go. Just priceless shit. They work so fucking well together, her and Tony. Like,
I think they're finding just the perfect chemistry as it's like slowly going on. The two of them are hanging out in a salon here, getting kind of wax or nails done and things like that. First manicures, eventually they started waxing Tony Schiavone, 40-year-old virgin style, and getting some good promos from Brett, letting everyone know that she's back here, ready to get herself back to the top of the women's division. And definitely had me laughing. I enjoyed this segment for sure.
I got super kicked by the Young Bucks. I had my nose broken. Taz would have been there. Oh, Taz. That was fucking great.
Yeah.
That was just great.
No, the little jabs and stuff there are fantastic now from Tony. You can tell he's just having a ton of fun too. He's just super into it, and who wouldn't be, right? That's a great little segment to be a part of. So
she cuts a great promo too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, she's getting across quite sharp, and it's meeting what we know her in-ring stuff is the caliber of too. So I'm excited to see where her next feud sort of elevates and things like that. We definitely need to see her more of her in the ring here. So back to the ring though, the announcers let us know that we're going to have the TNT title match coming up next. Orange Cassidy versus Cody Rhodes. Back to his blonde hair, back to the holding his gold belt, and back to his old ways a little bit.
Yeah, what was the bleach blonde back to all of a sudden? All about it. Were you surprised to see that?
A little, yeah. I wasn't.
just for the speed, the rapid fire of like, okay, I've decided black hair is not cutting it. I'm fucking going back to bleach blonde, starting now.
Yeah.
Not another couple weeks, Cody, just to see. Nope, fuck that. Blonde tonight. Like,
it's just for the toy variant, so they could be that one little segment. They can do a little double pack between him and Brody with the dog collar and the different Cody hair, so all the toy collectors can.
Was he black hair for the big show thing, or was he blonde for that?
Jeez, I don't know. I think he was blonde for the show because it would have been taped way before this, right? Like.
Well, no, it was when he started. He took the time off at the start when he lost the belt, but he came out and did that promo for it on air, and it was whatever color he had hair for that promo is what he would have had for the show.
He was still blonde. I think black was the reveal. Okay. Yeah.
Well, fucking weird then. I was just suddenly like, oh, maybe he led you to the show. Like, maybe no, you can't be that blonde sitting next to Snoop Dogg. It's not gonna work. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't always explain what's going on with Cody sometimes here, and yeah, I think
back. That was nice.
What's that?
Arms back. That was nice.
Yes.
He had a nice dress on. That was nice.
Yeah, back to some classic Cody stuff here.
Family stuff there, yeah.
And a bit of a classic Orange Cassidy match, at least in the beginning. Obviously, the build online between these two that the commentators were alluding to were Cody suggesting how much in all the great matches that Orange Cassidy had and all his accolades here, his big wins over Jericho and stuff like that, he's never actually locked up with anybody. And that's obviously how Cody definitely starts all of his matches. So he was certainly alluding to the fact of wanting to get that out of Orange Cassidy. And that was the story they told at the beginning of this match.
Yep, for about 7 minutes, I think. That was my own. I thought it was, all right, by the end of the match, they fucking had me hooked. I was into it for the last 4 minutes were fantastic, and I was heavily invested by that point. But it took me all of that first 15 minutes to get me there, man. I wish if it had been the first 2 minutes and then the final 4, I would have loved this match. It would have been match of the night.
Right.
I thought it really dragged through what I guess was the storytelling portion of it. But I know the Orange character now. Like, we've done a great job of building and selling him and telling me all about him over the last several months with Jericho, with his last couple of matches that haven't been against Jericho. He's heavily well developed at this point. And this felt like a lot of more development for him almost. And I've seen so much of Cody and his technical side and all of his wrestling. I guess by the end of the match, the way the finish went and everything, and that we're going to see the rematch in a couple of weeks before Full Gear. I get it. We're telling a deeper, longer story. I just personally, for me, I was 12 minutes in. I'm looking at my watch, being like, "Fuck me, can we get it over? I'm bored." Right, but by the end, they got me back. But you're a much bigger Orange Cassidy fan than I am. I will tell you that much. I don't dislike the guy at all, but I'm not. He's not on my top list of guys. Fair enough. Fine. I got no problem with the guy. No, but I'm not.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that can come down to it too. If you're not into the certain people, it can certainly take you out of the matchups. I am certainly a victim of that when the time comes as well. But yeah, I'll be the first to admit these are two of my favorites. So I'm always going to be a little bit more invested in the story because I know Cody is so much about that. So I'm always just curious what he wants to tell. He over the entire year we've got here in Dynamite, that's certainly been his MO. It's very rare we've got a Cody match that isn't had some story elements to it. So I was curious what beyond the lockup and those kind of things we were going to get here. I kind of liked that lockup thing was a bit of a throwback to the classic Orange stuff, something you could do now that you have a crowd. You could have a bit of feedback back and forth there. And then the story, it's unfortunate, like the story that you're telling here is Orange outlasting Cody and then Cody being too sore from the dog collar match to really get his full offense off, kind of thing, as well as just dealing with the how good Orange Cassidy is. So it was a cross breed of elements, but those tend to lead to a bit more of a slow pace because you have to get all the way to 20 minutes, and that's a lot of things to tell. So. Yeah,
I see it as a lot of Cody, and it's been a running theme with him while he's holding the belt, has been the underestimation of whoever it is that he's facing, right? So we've seen that time and time again when it was the open challenge matches and the indie guys were taking him further than they probably should have.
Is it even
Scorpio
common?
Sky. And he
Okay.
always has these slow build matches. I mean, Cody's style, while he's been the champion, has been slow build and a slow pace to the match. Do the push-ups in the middle. Don't rush to the next move. Eat up some shit with the fans. Eat up some stuff with Arn. Talk to the ref a bit. It's these little byproducty, healy little interjection-y bits that he does in between stuff that keeps his character tweenerish. And I don't dislike any of it. Some weeks I feel like it works fine, the slower pace to it. And tonight I was just like, oh, it's dragging, guys. Like, maybe it was because of the squish right before it and the promos leading into it. We'd slowed down from, again, that nice fast-paced opener.
Right.
He's like, slam those brakes, and then, yeah. But
yeah, I think a real work rate 20 minutes would have got a little tiresome, though, too. I think
for sure,
a bit of a lull here. So, but I could totally understand where you would get that elements of it there in the middle. It certainly had a bit of a drag. But to me, it was that sort of, whereas you're seeing it as like staleness from Cody, I saw it as growth. Whereas like at first it did seem like it was the confidence Cody where he would, go out to be like, well, what'd you think of that, Arn? Or like look at the crowd and do those kind of things. Whereas now he's doing it to be like, I can still do this shit, right? Like I just beat that guy. I've been really hurt. But I can still do these push-ups. I can still do these big top rope moves. Yeah. And then Arn being like, stop doing that shit. You're gonna lose this goddamn match. And he almost fucking lost the match. So I think that told a fantastic story once you got there. But I could see how if you weren't sort of triggered by any of that till the end, it's hard to sort of, or easier to sort of see that post than during. So very excited to see what happens later on from these two.
I think it's something that you called quite a while ago now, but I think it's inevitable. I think when they showed Darby in the crowd at the start of the match, I'm like, Eric called it again, man. He's coming for Cody. 4 times the charm. He's going to win that belt. So I think Cody wins the rematch with Orange in a couple weeks, and another good grueling contest that probably won't last 20 minutes or the full time limit. And then Darby Allin wins the belt from Cody at Full Gear.
I'd say it's that, or it's the eventual full turn from Cody, where it's like he's on this like slow move now, where it's like he's going to have this like grueling kind of again contest with Orange that will probably have to have him pulling out some deeper and darker parts from his repertoire, and then when he gets to that big match with Darby, which you would assume is still going to be a 20-minute limit, that seems to be the limit to a TNT title championship match, and I think that urgency could lead to Cody being like, okay, and doing something more drastic, because he doesn't want to lose that belt again like he just did to Brody. So if that was the story that they were kind of slowly telling for Cody over this time, I'm totally okay with that. So we'll kind of see how that kind of goes. Or if the story is that eventually it's Darby's time to be holding that championship, I'm totally okay with that too. So I think a good progression for the TNT title, and no sign of Brody Lee, but hopefully we'll see some big things from him post TNT championship as well.
And we did get the Dark Order in this match at ringside getting ejected, right? So
there was some involvement. Yeah,
he was there in spirit. I thought our little buddy Silvers was just fucking fantastic again, as usual.
Always trying to get himself over in the most way, and even in kayfabe sense, the idea where they want Cody to even get disqualified, so he has the title and that's who Brody can beat for it or whatever, if that was their sort of reasoning kind of thing. But no, nice to always see John Silver on the card if we can get him in any capacity. We got a little bit more fighting in the back from Archer and Moxley. It was just supposed to just be an interview with Marvez and Archer, but he gets attacked by Moxley. This obviously would have been what was instigating Tony Khan to make this a no DQ match, knowing now that Moxley's just as pissed off as Archer here. And hey, if that's it's some reason to have it, so makes sense to me.
Yeah, Martez just happy he didn't get kicked in the face. Next up, we had Reby Hardy and family. Sammy burning pictures of Matt right in front of his kids. That's fucking low, dude.
Yeah.
But I liked it. So, and I liked the darker Sammy. I thought that was one of the better promos. I like that a lot better, like tenfold better. It sets a better tone for what we want to see from him than the card tearing, card flipping Sammy in the pick and pick on a break stuff, which
Yeah.
was just a pure kind of comedy act. I'm not sure that I 100% buy this was always where they were going with the sneak attacker on Matt in various things like that.
True.
But at least we've tied up several loose ends in one shot. We're not going to have a who was driving the Hummer within year one of AEW on wondering any of these things with Matt Hardy.
Yeah.
It's cleared up. It was Sammy, and we'll get back to maybe they can have a match where one of them doesn't wind up in hospital for non-kayfabe reasons.
Exactly. I like at least Sammy working that into the promo where it's like, oh, I'm glad you're finally cleared. Every time you get cleared, I'm going to keep putting you back on the shelf. I'm like, oh, well, they're nice. I kind of like that bit of dig there. So
Agreed.
I kind of get why they're maybe going this direction too, to let these guys finally have the match they never got to have before, and now they're both back here ready to do things. Maybe we'll again knock on wood that we don't end up in the tragic incidents that we had last time, and these two can have a proper blow off to their feud.
Shit, man, I think we're just stuck in a spot with Sammy. You called it a little bit ago with like just there's a lack of interest in a guy that I really like him, and I'm a big fan, and I feel like he's stuck in this little bit of a quagmire. The only one of the group from the inner circle, and that includes Hager, he doesn't seem like he's gotten the rub from it. And
in a full year, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I know that we've had the thing that happened, the suspension with the Sasha comments. We had more time off with the injury stuff. Like there are reasons behind why he hasn't been on as much, but it just feels like even when we have seen him, and maybe it's because it's been the main feud's been with Hardy, and he's had reasons why he hasn't been there sometimes. So difficult, but like, it feels like they got like, man, we got to get this push has to happen. And this was always what it was supposed to be based off the back of this. And it still has to fucking come. So maybe I'm thinking that's what it is, but
I was surprised. No, like, even like a big TNT feud with Cody at some point in the summer or whatever for him, like push wise. But again, that it was coming off the suspension, all those kind of things. Not his year for sure, as things ended up shaking out. So a little unfortunate. I'm gonna say I've never been the biggest Sammy Guevara fan, but obviously as the character has sort of evolved, he definitely has cadence and good things that I like to see out there, but I always like to see more from somebody. There's very few people you can pick out in AEW that didn't have, 4 or 5 feuds over the entire year, and that's such a rarity from what you get consistency wise from like WWE. So you just kind of hope that he can eventually get that ball rolling and get that rub from the inner circle that you sort of thought was going to happen initially as to why he was brought into that group.
I really feel that the best is yet to come from him, and that he hasn't had the time and the proper chance to shine yet. And I hope I'm right. I hope we don't.
If it's stuff with him and MJF, right, if they have if it's like a feud with MJF where it's like, loser leaves the inner circle or whatever, and like if it's a bit of a turn for Sammy in a different direction, something like that, I think him and MJF could have great matches. Or if it's inevitably the turn on Jericho, something like that for him, he could certainly use that rub in a good way. So I think I need to cover the next segment. You seem to have missed a bit of the feed before we get to the next championship match.
Yeah, my stupid internet just died and dropped right off. I was just praying it came back, but I did not want to miss the main event. I was starting to get pretty bummed out the longer it stayed off for, but then
understandable.
Back on, but not before I missed this whole bit.
I was having troubles earlier on in the night before the show had even started, and I was worried I was going to be missing the whole thing. So I was glad I got to catch things. So I know the feeling there, but I'll catch you up. The commentators, perfect. They let us know that after FTR had won their title match, there were sort of at a loss for who is next in line in the tag team division. So we were going to have a raffle to see who to pick 4 participants to pick 4 tag teams to participate in a fatal 4-way match next week to determine who will be the number 1 contender for FTR. You would assume then at Full Gear. All the tag teams were sort of hanging out on the dais there, sort of waiting. FTR were in the ring. They have the sort of bingo raffle ball thing, and Tony Schiavone starts drawing names. He draws Private Party first, Silver and Reynolds, 3 and 4 from the Dark Order, Butcher and Blade, and then gets a little upset because the last name, Young Bucks, throws it. Everyone, ooh, as the Young Bucks approach the ring. Each team, as they were announced, entered the ring to sort of have a little square off with the FTR and then take their sort of place. Everyone's a little tentative as the Young Bucks enter. They shake hands with the FTR, but kind of get in their faces a little bit as they're telling them to kind of calm down. And they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we're calm. Tony, you can calm down. We're not here to super kick you. We're not, here to do any of that kind of stuff. But we are here to super kick these guys." And they instantly kick. I think it was just Silver and then Blade, and then that just brought Butcher and Reynolds into the brawl. They start all kind of scrambling. They toss the wheel at FTR. They start running. The 4 teams start brawling all over the place. Private Party and Young Bucks, I believe, the only 2 teams left in the ring as everyone else kind of scrambles to the outside. They kind of shake hands with them before turning on them as well with a big super kick, laying them out and staring down the FTR as they faded off to the commercial break there. I think good, solid 4 teams. Certainly a tease once again for this inevitable FTR Young Bucks match. With the other teams put into this mix, it does seem more inevitable that we are going to get the Young Bucks match. I kind of would have liked to see a different team thrown in there to maybe make it feel a little bit more surprising, but everyone else seems kind of tied up. Jungle Boy's in the tournament, so you can't really put Jurassic Express in there. SCU just lost, but so did Private Party. But it's a lot of heel teams like Silver and Reynolds and Butcher and Blade. I don't necessarily see winning, and I don't see Private Party winning either. So what do you make of those 4 teams? You think Young Bucks pretty much have that in the bag, or
I think, again, much kind of like the way I'm looking at the tournament bracket. I'm thinking that, we're supposed to think Young Bucks kind of have this in the bag. And that's the swerve, right? Is when one of the others. But you're right. It's like, well, the only other team that makes sense that would win it in the swerve sense out of that would be 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Silver Reynolds, right? Which you could see the Dark Order, the rest of the guys are a couple getting involved and getting them the win.
For sure, and they've been getting wins on Dark and things like that, and being featured so much more lately, and to be elevated again above Uno and Stu as well, with some more tension in the Dark Order. I could certainly see that being a different type of direction.
The Bucks managed
and
to
a fantastic matchup.
Somehow.
Pardon me?
The Bucks managed to eliminate themselves somehow, like with deciding they're going to go after Excalibur because he said FTR too many times.
Absolutely, right? Or they just walk off, or they don't participate, or something like that, or who knows what ends up taking place. So I certainly, it seems like the writing is on the wall, but also I feel like there's something else kind of brewing, because it always just feels a little too soon, especially with the heel turn so tentative with the Bucks. It doesn't seem like the FTR match makes any sense right now. So
I just
we'll have to wait and see.
I just have this feeling that they want to, it's like a background behind the stage thing. Is they're like, oh, you thought waiting a year for Hogan versus Sting or The Rock versus Sting was a long time? Hold their fucking beers. You're going to wait for this one.
Yeah.
And we might be waiting like into the 2nd year anniversary, being like, one day we'll get it right. Surely.
And they're going to hold those belts. I promise you they're going to hold those belts. Oh, my God. Yeah, I can see it being 2 years or something before the Bucks finally hold that gold.
It definitely feels a little bit, and despite the fact it's been a while that we're ready for it, and I'm chomping at the bit to see him in the ring, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It still feels like maybe, a little bit too soon, a little bit anticlimactic to see it at full gear.
True. Yeah.
So I don't know, but I got this exactly like you say. I think they should be the team that wins it. I want to say, they're going to win it. Look, hands down, they should be the winners. But just something says Swerve's coming. So
a little bit more so than the tournament, but I could see it there too. So no, I think again, I enjoy the little seeds always here in AEW. But
sure.
Next matchup, we had one of our next title matches as Hikaru Shida defended her women's television, or not women's television title, women's world title here. Elevate that much more. She defended here against Big Swole. Yeah, not the best match, I would say, out of Hikaru or Swole, unfortunately.
No, shit, I'm stuck on losing the name now. The girl I like. Um,
Britt or
no, from last week. The girl they just signed her, Serena Deeb.
oh, Serena Deeb. Yeah,
Serena Deeb carried Swole to a better match
yeah.
than Sheeta was able to, and I'm not sure if I don't really blame that on Sheeta. I don't blame it on Swole. It's circumstantial, is what it is.
I
It
think yes,
wasn't.
stylistically they just clashed a little bit. They didn't.
Yeah,
I kind of saw that on the like that writing on the wall a little bit pre-match too, because again, it's hard to tell a story with two faces unless someone's going to be playing that other side, unless they're just doing what they did in this match, where it's just shot for shot or move for move, feats of, or competing strength kind of deals there. And unfortunately, when you have that kind of thing, it just sort of seems to pull all the momentum that Swole had built up. But her talking and all the promos and stuff with Britt certainly seemed to elevate her above her in ring ability, and
yeah,
then it's become more and more element as it's like it was. It made sense that she was getting these title shots and she's there because of story and the wins and all those kind of things, but also a little unfortunate where they weren't really pushing anyone else to be in this spot. And but yeah, I mean, I don't. It's of two worlds. Like I'm super happy to have Big Swole in this spot because I don't want it to just be Nyla Rose, which it seems what they're building to for Full Gear, which
yeah.
I'm super not excited for, like at all. Like I just don't need to see that. But I'm also sort of like in a bit of a lull on Hikaru. I was very hot on her like when she won the title from Nyla at first, but with a lack of competitors other than the Thunder Rosa stuff, there really hasn't been a ton of great exposure for her. And it just seems like, yeah, where is our inevitable way to get that belt onto Brett? But then what do you
Yeah,
do with her too? Because I don't want it to all of a sudden ruin her too in a way. But can she elevate it in a different way than a different heel can? Because like being on the Monster Nyla is just not something that worked very well. So, but maybe being on a heel that keeps it off TV or away from the other girls in a sense that they all have to compete for a spot more. I don't know. I'm not sure what you do.
I I'm not quite sure at this point how you get it on the Brit unless it is just she beat Sheeta for it, and I don't know that they're willing to sacrifice Sheeta that way. I'm a little bit confused as to why they pulled apart what was working well with the foursome. I guess they obviously didn't have Thunder Rosa forever, but they'd gotten Ivelisse and Diamante into a position through her and through the matches with Sheeta and Thunder Rosa
Yeah.
that those three girls could have kept working together.
Yeah.
And Diamante and Ivelisse are technically in ring and a lot better than Swole is. They brought better matches out of Sheeta than Swole was able to.
Yeah.
I think the long term project with Big Swole was always to continue and continuously build her up as this monster style babyface to one day down the road she can win the title from a Nyla, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's just they kind of because of lack of the girls in the roster depth right now, she's been thrust into this position, and yeah, she's just too green, man. Like there was too many little sloppy things,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just what it is. But I mean, it wasn't a train wreck. I've seen way worse Divas matches put on in my day, and WCW put on way bigger train wrecks, and TNA put on way bigger train wrecks of girls matches. So it wasn't the worst female match I've ever seen, and I don't want to bear it. It wasn't the best match. It was the worst match on this card.
Yeah, it's always a tough hill to climb there. But say as soon as you mention Diamante and Ivelisse, I think that would have been a much better. Not that Swole hasn't earned this opportunity, and it could have come a little bit further, maybe down the road or something from Swole, even just the next type of thing. But I think a better anniversary show matchup thing would have been, yeah, like after the blow off from the Thunder Rosa stuff with Diamante and Ivelisse, that the two of them could just have the reasoning that they went to management and like are like, well, we're cashing in basically the fact that we won the tournament, that we both want an opportunity at Sheeta, and then they have a triple threat match or something like that, right? So I think that would have been a much more interesting match we would have got out of all three of those women tonight, and a better match you could have told in the 9 minutes you got from Hikaru and Swole. So yeah, I think unfortunate, but not the worst thing in the world, that's for sure. But yeah, hopefully bigger and better things for the women's division as well as Hikaru and Big Swole when they are back here on Dynamite.
Sean Spears saved the segment. He saved the quarter because he came in next with best promo I've seen out of him since he was taking on Cody, for sure.
Yeah, no, this has been, again, a slow build on Dark, obviously. Like, those are the clips they were using in the story that he was kind of telling. But if you're unfamiliar with that kind of stuff, it was a nice way to segmentalize that all mentalize that all together here in a little video package, as he let everyone know about the feud he's sort of having with Scorpio Sky and the interest he has there in Scorpio. And yeah, I think that's a really good feud for both these guys, and it was a really good promo from Spears.
Yeah, I think putting for heels, it's always, you got more options with the heels than they do with the faces to a degree. I think you can stick a heel solo act up against one of the SCU, have him go over. You haven't hurt the SCU member at all because he's got his two buddies to lean back on, who hopefully have been winning as well while he took a loss. Plus, hey, I'm in a trio here. It doesn't matter if I lose a solo match.
Well, or you use it,
and they're such good workers. They're all they can all put on great matches. So they're.
And I think the way they're the story they're kind of telling with it is the slow work through that Spears is going to do through the SCU. He once again on Dark this week, he had a bit of an interaction with Sky and Daniels, and after the interaction, he had sort of challenged, or Christopher Daniels had sort of challenged him to a match on the next Dark. So it seems like he will probably beat Daniels, more than likely have a match with Kazarian before getting to the match with Sky. That would be sort of how I predict the train sort of rolling. But no, you can totally do this with that trios group, where if one guy is sort of going out on a bit more of a singles push, the other guys are usually hopefully winning to keep the team elevated. But
you've gotten enough right over the last few weeks. We know by now that you are actually secretly booking AEW. So that's not just a prediction. That's a spoiler, everybody.
Fair enough. Well, we'll see if I can predict and spoil anything else for anybody here. We'll get to the main event here next. Lance Archer and Jon Moxley here in a no disqualification match, as we are told by the commentary booth, who were joined by the family members of Eddie Kingston and Phoenix and Pentagon. And yeah, we got a really interesting entrance here from Lance Archer with the glass. I really kind of like that, him tossing the guy through. What did you make of the helmet, though? He kind of looked like Shotzi Blackheart to me.
Yeah, the helmet was a weird touch. I was thinking of one of the characters from her. Oh my God, that old TV show, the wartime MASH, or
okay,
one of the German guys in the war with like Colonel something or other. That's who I made me think.
Hogan's Heroes or something like that.
Yeah, Hogan's Heroes. That's what it was. I wondered if that was some kind of shot at Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, the glass doesn't just break with my music. I've thrown through that shit. That's why the glass smashes, bitch. I loved it. I thought we got a Lance Archer tonight. There was a throwback to the one we had just before all the shenanigans with the Battle Royal and thing.
Yeah.
It looked devastating again.
Promo
stuff leading up. And then the match itself. First off, when we got Eddie and the boys at commentary, I thought that the no DQ stip was going to lead to these guys interfering, getting the belt on Lance, and we see that him and Taz have made this business arrangement.
Right.
But no, we didn't get that.
No, they seem to. I'd say if there's one thing you can almost always predict here in AEW is there's very rarity that is there an interference that leads to like a stopped finish. You always end up getting a finish here, regardless. But I totally could have seen it maybe leaning in that direction here. But yeah, nice to have Eddie on the commentary booth, and I thought it was definitely a solid match from these two. I did think a little bit, and I don't know if more this is my ideas, where it's just like, again, I am watching all the stuff they're doing. They've been doing a really good job with Eddie post loss to Moxley, to keep him talking about Moxley, getting wins on Dark, and then cutting promos on Moxley, getting them all with different submissions for a reason, and then cutting them on Moxley. That it just seems like that feud's not over, and that like it was certainly building to that. And as much as I enjoyed him on the commentary and he was great, it in my mind just kept being like, well, then there's no way Lance is winning this, like other than unless they throw some huge swerve at me. was taking away some elements of that you never know kind of thing. But I think Lance brought a lot of that back by hitting some of those huge blackouts, and I mean, kicking out of the paradigm shift and the table spots and stuff like that, and Moxley having to really dig deep and hit him with a low blow and all kinds of stuff to really get the win. I thought it was a really good back and forth. So a fantastic main event here for our world champion and Lance Archer. So certainly looking like the monster he once was.
This was my favorite match of the night tonight. I thought we got a better job. We put Jon Moxley as the character they want to portray him as. He's the hard ass, badass, tough as fuck, can take a shit kicking and still come back and deliver a bit more, and still come back and deliver a bit more. Plus, they got Lance over as this dominating giant of a force, of a monster of a guy. Like, it was such it worked. The match worked for both guys. And too much out of Moxley. Seen matches that just for whatever reason don't quite click. They're good or they're whatever, but his title run has been less than stellar, I guess. I still think Jericho is the AEW champion, came off better with a better title run right now.
Right.
Moxley's it's not necessarily, I won't bury it as badly as when he was Dean Ambrose's title run in WWE, but it is reminiscent of like a Seth Rollins title run in WWE, where the matches haven't been up to the caliber of what he did before he won the belt.
Right.
We have better matches out of Moxley, I think, arguably against Pac and against Kenny before he won the title than we've seen in some of his title matches, but not tonight. I really felt tonight was the best Jon Moxley I've seen in quite a while.
Lance, I think it comes down to
he brought the best out of Lance.
No, yeah, and sometimes that can come down to opponents too. I mean, you're going to get a
totally
different match out of Brian Cage, which is obviously his early feuds there. I thought the Darby Allin match, though, he had were fantastic. I really enjoyed the MJF match that he had. So I think Moxley's had not a fantastic run. I don't think it's been perfect by any means, but it's had some highs and lows for sure, and a lot of sort of things thrown at it. The Brody Lee match obviously wasn't the sort of best thing they could do, but I enjoyed the finish of that too. But yeah, I'm gonna say difference of opinion.
I put the MJF match with Moxley in the same category as the Brody one, where like, geez, that could have been better. I thought you guys would have done more and different and a bit whatever with each other. I just thought they were a little bit too generic for world championship title matches with the caliber guy in the match and stuff. And again, I'm not trying to shit on them, because I did like those matches. I've just felt that it's been an underwhelming run. And I want to, in much the same vein that I want to see Sammy salvaged and see him be like heralded as like, yeah, everybody's really behind this guy and this heel. I'd like to feel like that was the case more with Moxley as the AEW World Champ. And I think a match like tonight's one goes a long way in that direction, for me anyway. I really liked it, and I really felt like this was you are the world champ. This was a fucking main event world title match.
Right.
Pay-per-view caliber match tonight, like for sure, on free TV. So I was more than happy with the show tonight, and this is the finish. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm gonna say I'm super glad that it went over for you so well, and glad that you're certainly back on the Moxley train. I didn't Peter as much as you had there. I would put the Darby match, the MJF match above this, but I think it comes down to opponent. I think Moxley does have a good story he can tell against a big guy, but I've seen it enough times, and that was sort of what we got here. And it was good to see a lot of that from Lance, but in my mind, the writing was just on the wall, and it was just wait till we get there, and eventually we got there. And not to take anything away, good match, fun spots, but a little just too much telegraphed for me. So that's just where I end up with this one. Yeah. But I don't think that's a detriment at all to Lance. We'll see what happens with him next. But yeah, he went for the blackout once again here at the end, but Moxley was able to catch him with a roll up, a real sort of tight finish there in a close, about 13-minute match. This just, ignited Lance into a fury once again as he attacked Moxley. Eddie Kingston tells Phoenix and Pentagon to go save or help him. and you're not quite sure what that means. You're not sure
Who's
if that
him?
means, is that go help Lance attack Moxley, or is that go help Moxley? And it's the latter apparently, or it was the former.
Yeah, he has the boys go out and save John from the beatdown, and then explains to the crowd that he saved him because they're such a history. They go way back, way back. He just told JR 5 minutes before on commentary, though, that he's not happy because he went and became an entertainer, and he was supposed to take us with him, but he didn't. So it's not just the anger of him going to be an entertainer. There's jealousy in there, too, because he wanted to be making that dollar up in the north. And, he got sacrificed, left behind by John. And then so he sacrificed John, smashes him with a backhand. Poof.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Obviously, the furthering this feud between him and Moxley here, as Eddie puts him into a chokehold, I think, afterwards as well, kind of laying him out, getting the world title, kind of boistering around with it. And definitely letting you know that that certainly seems like that'll be John Moxley's next matchup moving forward, probably more than likely leading towards All Out or Full Gear, rather. And
now, see,
I think that makes a lot of sense with what they've been doing so far. But what were you going to say?
For sure. I guess my only criticism of this would be the timing of stuff. Is we know that our tournament right now is for the number one contendership. They're going to have the finals at Full Gear. But I agree with you. We're probably going to get a world title match at Full Gear. So am I not going to be led to believe that the setup and the whatever and the payoff for the title is going to be against John Moxley? At least that's the way the promos and stuff's going to build. I suppose I kind of somewhat suspend that stuff with, like, even tonight when Eddie's talking about stuff, it's like, well, it could be telegraphing that he's definitely going to get the win and this is his definite next challenger for the belt. Or it could be setting up the fallback opponent so he doesn't automatically go for the rematch for the title. So I lose the belt to whoever, say it's Lance tonight. Moxley has his next feud built in. Remember Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage from a long time ago. But that led off from Sergeant Slaughter, Savage costs Warrior the title to the Sarge. And rather than Warrior keep going after Slaughter because they wanted Hogan to go for Slaughter, Warrior's got Savage now to fight with. So you thought that they were getting Savage into position to go for the title run against the Ultimate Warrior, but it actually wasn't for that reason. It was to go this direction with Warrior.
Right.
So is there that chance that we're getting Eddie built up as the opponent for Moxley, and at some point he costs him the belt or Moxley loses the belt, and that's just his feud that he's got next, is him and Eddie are ready to have this blood feud. And it's not for a title, it's for prestige, pride, all of the things that they've been talking about for the last little while. You left me behind. The jealousy now kicks in more. It was never about the belt. It was just about, I hate you, John. You know what I mean? And the champion could go on without having to, like, well, he's got to give Mox a rematch. He's got to take Mox on and beat him again. Well, Mox is busy now. And that spins.
But like you're saying, Mox loses to who then? I'm confused as to like the where the story went there all of a sudden.
If it's tonight, if he could have lost to Archer tonight, or if, like in the tournament, for example, I'm seeing the way, in my own mind, I'm seeing Hangman and Page in the finals because they're going to clash with the winner getting the world title shot, who we're going to be led to believe is against John Moxley. So if he's fighting Eddie Kingston that night, well, he's probably going to beat Eddie Kingston that night, or whoever he's fighting in the main event at Full Gear. I'm not going to.
Well, I think that's going to be that you're thinking regardless. I don't think that matters who's in that spot then, right? Like if you're already like you're putting the cart before the horse, worrying about what Hangman and Kenny are doing and thinking about taking on Moxley and then
the tournament. Whoever wins the tournament, right? If they're being touted,
but if it's even if it's not winning the tournament, again, if it's the storytelling, if eventually it leads to, it's Pentagon versus Hangman in the finals and something like that, and Pentagon loses or wins, or who knows if there's more story there for Eddie to all of a sudden win the title. Again, I think there's maybe more to play with there, and I don't think it necessarily writes Eddie off as a blow off potential or like a non-title contender at all. But I think that it's up to interpretation, I suppose. So I'm excited for this.
No, I'm just at Full Gear. Then it won't matter that there's a number one contender match that night. Like,
I don't think that affects anything. I think it's just that lets you know what happens down the road. That those two feuds can be very separate, and then you get what happens later on. I think the winner of the tournament won't fight the winner of Moxley versus whoever till later on. Like, there's no way you're going to have Full Gear and not have your AEW World Title on the card. So I think the feud comes for Hangman or Kenny or Colt or whoever wins the tournament for the world champion later, like for Revolution or whatever pay-per-view comes later. Or if they don't, I'm going to say, I think it depends on what story they end up telling. If it's Jungle Boy that wins, it'll just be a Dynamite title match more than likely, right? Like, so it depends on where the story goes. So I find this one a little bit harder to predict than some of the other things they do personally. So we'll have to see how it goes.
As always.
Well, that about wraps it up for my end of the blow by blow. Any other things you'd like to comment on?
I have nothing.
Well, that I think that wraps it up for the anniversary edition of Dynamite and our blow by blow here. Chris, let everyone know where they can hear us.
You can hear us live on 88.7 The River radio station every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and even a replay Sunday morning at 10, if you're lucky enough to live in Ontario, Canada. If not, check it online, 887theriver.ca. We're under the archives. And of course, you can listen to this very podcast that we do on YouTube on audio podcast sites, broadcast from sounder.com around the podcast universe. Is it multiverse or universe?
Oh, yes, it's a big, big universe. And we are, speaking of YouTube, here with the video version of the podcast. Thank you all for watching. If you've been here, give the video a little like. You can share it with your friends. You can ring the bell. It'll let you know the next time we put up a video. You can get in the comments and let us know what you thought of this anniversary edition of Dynamite, what you thought of our opinions on it. If my predictions are completely off, if I've maybe eventually called something once again here on Dynamite, we will see what happens next time here on Low Blow Radio Podcast.
Adios, amigos.